Buffelsdrift farm lies 15 kilometers to the west of Ladysmith in the Klein Karoo. The climate is hot and arid with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius. Rainfall averaged 200 millimeters per year. Several historic Cape Dutch buildings were built on the farm during the mid-1800s.
My name is Greg Truan. I studied architecture in Durban, South Africa 30 years ago. We did a field trip that took us through the Karoo to Cape Town. The landscapes and the buildings made a powerful and lasting impact on me. I've practiced in Cape Town as a director of SAOTA for most of my professional life. We have a focus on contemporary architecture that is concerned largely with how buildings relate to the landscapes that they're in and how people live in those buildings. Buffelsdrift came to me by chance, an opportunity to do something on the land and an opportunity to learn more about a part of the country and its architecture that I had so admired all of those years ago. With Jaco Booyens Architect as a collaborator, it has been an extraordinary journey, bringing these buildings back to life and discovering afresh a technology which is as relevant now as it was 2 centuries ago.
My name is Jaco Booyens and I run a solo practice. I work from home in the Cape Winelands district. It's about 2 hours drive east of Cape Town, South Africa. I do all work myself, including design, construction drawings and site supervision and admin. The beginning of the Buffelsdrift restoration project started about 4 years ago when I got an unexpected phone call from Greg Truan from SAOTA. He was looking for an architect who had experience with earth construction. What I find interesting about this project is that the initial trigger for me to get involved in this project at first was not history but technology. The apparent novelty of a restoration project lies in its history, the story that the building tells, some ideally to be forgotten, especially the last 50 years who did this specific monument no favor. I spent my early years wandering in the veld on the eastern outskirts of Pretoria. It was here where I first encountered structures that were made out of the surrounding earth. A small number of modest man-made structures caught my attention. I remember how as a child I was surprised by these structures' stubbornness to survive, and I felt compelled to attempt to repair one of these dilapidated and abandoned clay houses, and despite having to abandon this ambition at the time due to technical difficulties, little did I suspect that later in my life I would become known for my knowledge of natural earth construction. Most modern buildings are only made from hard materials, and I've noticed that older buildings and structures like the Pantheon and Colosseum were made from hard and soft materials that weathered differently. It could be compared to the materiality of bone, tissue and skin. Just as brick, stone, concrete, wood, glass and steel are building materials with their own properties, advantageous in some respects and disadvantageous in other, earth-based materials like clay, mud and rammed earth are the same. Once the structural parameters are known and accepted with their pros and cons, the use of these materials become, in a sense, ordinary. I want to briefly flip through a couple of projects due to time constraints. They include a combination of competition entries and unbuilt projects as well. During the 1990s, the municipal head office in Pretoria, South Africa's capital, was partly destroyed in a fire. A competition was launched for the redevelopment of the building complex. Our team's winning design focused on passive climate control principles and urban interventions to create a city plain with an African character. During 2001, I entered and won a design competition for a 9-month scholarship and residency at the British School of Rome. The design brief was to design a trade mission for Africa on the historical site of the Castle St. Angelo. While at the British Academy, I worked on a conceptual scheme for a vertical village on the River Tiber. The building stood in the river surrounded by a newly implemented wetland system in an attempt to clean the polluted river. This competition for the new green headquarters, BP Cape Town, was won by Creer Roos Architects and the building constructed shortly after. Our design was very similar in layout to the winning scheme, with enclosed glass atriums between building flanks. The Damaraland Clay project was a community project in the Oegap River, Damaraland, Namibia, in the Soris Conservancy. The buildings was built with sun-dried bricks made on site and from material collected in the nearby area. The builders were untrained and the technique of free vaulting without formwork had to be discovered by a process of trial and error. I had a brief encounter with a project at Novolazarevskaya in Queen Maud Land for the Antarctic Logistics Company International. The company explored some ideas to build a short-stay container depot for scientists from where they were transported to stations deeper in the field. Subsistence farm Reismuurberg. From 2006 until 2015, I spent most of my time on this self-financed project. This building or architectural shack is mainly constructed with poured earth and stone, and doors, shutters and windows were handmade on site. I used a very old tractor-driven welding machine to do most of the welding work. The roof consists of a delicate steel structure cladded by recycled S-profile corrugated roof sheets and covered with tennis ball-sized stones hand collected in the immediate vicinity. There is no grid electricity available, and consequently, but also by choice, this is an off-grid site. Almost no cement was used, and before solar power was on site, all energy was generated with a 1950 listed diesel engine running on used vegetable oil. Other than 3 laborers helping for 3 months, the building was self-built. The purpose of this project is to create a self-sustaining farm in the foothills of the Langeberg, situated in the Western Cape. The climate is harsh, windswept in summer by hot southeast mountain winds, and take the brunt of a very wet winter storms from the northwest, and the rocky clay soil has a pH of 3.9, not ideal for farming. The applied principles of permaculture implemented here will hopefully in time lead to the ability to grow enough food to sustain some people. This modern villa for John Theron, a businessman from Swakopmund, Namibia, was planned to be built on a site 20 kilometers inland from Swakopmund in the Moon landscape, and although the scheme developed to the stage of detailed construction drawings, the project was shelved. Fort Gaia is a work in progress being built by an owner-builder and friend Joe Haasbroek on the outskirts of Swakopmund, Namibia, in a desert landscape. The fort has rammed earth walls and a roof made of a series of very thin ferro-cement vaulted modules. The columns and deck are salvaged Spanish oak piles that washed up on the shore after an oyster platform was destroyed by a storm. Earthworld Architects Design Entry won the commission for a new research campus at the University of Pretoria named Future Africa. For a few months I collaborated with a fellow architect from my student days, Andre Eksteen, to develop this plywood structure that formed the main structure for a dining hall and auditorium on the campus. A very recent interest to me is the possibilities of algorithmic design. This is a conceptual project for an off-grid skyscraper with an external space-framed structure. The inner skin can be used to fit the weatherproof envelope, while the outer skin can be used for fixing of solar cells, micro wind turbines, water harvesting systems, and green walls. Creolization is the natural order of human cultures. Man is a nomad, always encountering foreign cultures. In the meetings there is hybridization, not only through cultural osmosis, that is, in order to survive, the newly arrived need to understand, adapt and adopt indigenous knowledge, particularly as this relates to food and shelter, but in the process the indigenes to acquire new understanding, reverse cultural osmosis. South African society, and in particular its architectural vernacular, of which Cape Dutch, the most internationally famous, serves as just such an example. In a global village, the trend is a stylistic homogeneity, but the vernacular traditions persist, however more rapidly tempered by readily available information. The buildings found in their pre-restored state included some horizontal proportioned steel doors and windows added during the building's recent history, which is foreign to Cape Dutch architecture. Several new stoops or porches had been added, constructed in a confused eclectic manner. A modern bathroom was added at a very important position of the connection between the two roofs, forming a T. The bathroom was demolished to restore the building to its original simple plan form with a series of rectangular rooms with direct access to each other. The stoops was removed to leave the buildings as clean as possible in their original pure form. Steel windows and doors was removed and replaced with copies of the existing historical windows in the building. Beneath the new corrugated S-profile roof, we found the remains of the original thatch reed roof covering. The decision was made to remove the S-profile and replace the roof with Albertina dacryte harvested in the close vicinity. The 6 historical buildings had been constructed by a combination of the Devonshire cob method, slightly different than the more known sun-dried masonry brick method also used. According to Roger Fisher, Devonshire cob is well described by Burchell in his travels of 1818 when visiting the detours of Bushman's Kloof beyond Franshoek. The poplar pole roof structure was fixed up by a specialist to the traditional construction methods and all original dowel fixings kept. The main house floor was in bad repair and we sourced poplar floorboards from the Eastern Cape to replace them with. The original yellowwood ceilings were sanded down. The Klein Karoo is famous for the production of high-quality dried soft fruit including pears, peaches, apricots and plums. A byproduct of the drying process are the pips. The pips are crushed and is traditionally used as a plant-based gravel and as an ingredient in the traditional dung floors. The ground cover in the drone footage is this material. It is a good insulator and has a cooling effect of the surrounding ground in close proximity to the house. Historically, pipes and pumps was unavailable technology. An elaborate system of gravity-fed leywatervore fed from the Swartberg River, which is currently not much more than a dry stream, can be seen at Buffelsdrift and all over the South African farming landscape. We introduced such a watervoer running along the length of the main house and courtyard buildings. The pumped borehole water follows this voer and flows to the irrigation dam to the east of the road. The flowing water has an evaporative cooling effect during hot summer days. Opposite the road, facing the main house, is a simple rectangular box-shaped building constructed of sun-dried brick. Its original function was most likely a tobacco drying shed or wine store, at first only 1.5 stories in height. Before the restoration, half a story of fired bricks was added to lift the building to a double-story building with upper mezzanine level. A modern bathroom and surface-mounted electrical wiring was added without care. These were removed. The building's eclectic mix of patched cement plasters was stripped internal and external and replaced with traditional lime plaster. Stoops and decks constructed from creosote poles had been added to the east. These were removed to restore the building back to its monolithic original state. A new bathroom with timber, drywall and terrazzo was inserted, filling the width of the building on the mezzanine level. The exterior was painted with whitewash with added red pigment to reference the pink Louis Barragan is well known for. A clumsy constructed concrete staircase was demolished and replaced with a new contemporary CNC fabricated staircase. As in the main house, steel doors and windows had been used in several previous renovations. It was replaced with new custom-made sash windows referencing the panes from the main house and double opening French doors with Parliament hinges. Since I saw the first brick vault in Swakopmund built by Vrenus Roerich, a local architect, and some Nubian vaults built by an NGO in Otjiwarongo, Namibia, vaulted and all other shell-type structures became an obsessive interest to me. I follow the work from late Hassan Fati, Felix Candela, and Gustavino, the inventor of timbrel vaulting. In South Africa, where no craftsmen exist to build vaulted and domed structures, another tactic is needed. As part of the Buffelsdrift project, a few new buildings were planned, a new house and a room for pumping equipment. I convinced Greg Truan to take a chance on investing in an experimental building method to build a building with a series of small flat vaults without formwork. It turned out to be very successful. 2 vaults was built 1 row at a time with a catenary-shaped template supported by a steel rail system to be removed later. The sideways kick of the brick vault is kept in balance by steel rods in tension. The poured earth end walls of this building is 1.2 meters thick and partly resist the sideways force. Steel beams with vertical flanges allow light to enter from above and give the roof a certain floating feeling.